You're listening to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast, your podcast for escaping life's monotony, indulging in your wildest travel fantasies, and discovering the constant beauty of this ever-changing world.
On today's episode, Shannon Madigan joins us to talk about all things Taiwan, from food to cultural differences and snorkeling.
Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. I'm your only navigator today, and if you're new here, I'm Allison. Your other navigator is Regan, but she won't be joining us today. And today is Travel Tuesday, which means we have a very special guest for all of you today. But before you meet her, just a couple of reminders. Check out our website. That's www.wanderlustingwives.com. You can learn more about us. You can check out past episodes from Season 1 and Season 2. And you can check out our newsletter, where you can sign up for our newsletter, and then opportunities to connect with us. That's all on our website at www.wanderlustingwives.com. You can also connect with us on social media. Instagram is at wanderlustingwives, Facebook, Wanderlusting Wives Podcast, Twitter at Wanderlust Wives, and then our email is wanderlustingwives@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, and our running joke now is share the wealth. Don't keep our podcast a secret. So share it with your friends, your family. It's the best gift, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, since we have Travel Tuesday episodes every other Tuesday, and then Wildcard Wednesday episodes every other Wednesday. So there's always something for you to check out coming from us, the Wanderlusting Wives. So share the wealth with all of your friends and family. But without further ado, I would love to introduce all of you to our Travel Tuesday guest. Shannon Madigan is here with us today. She is one of my really good friends who has shared a lot about her travel experiences to Taiwan, and she's going to share those experiences with all of us here today. So welcome, Shannon.
Hey, Allie. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you, and we can't wait to learn more about your experiences with Taiwan. So why Taiwan? Why is that such a popular place for you to travel to?
So a little bit about me. My mom is from Taiwan. She was born and raised. And then my dad, he's from the US. He's from Pennsylvania. And he had gone to Taiwan because he wanted to study Chinese. So he met my mom, they became language exchange partners, eventually fell in love, and basically, since I was a little kid, I've been going back to Taiwan to visit my mom's family. None of them speak English, so I'm also fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And that's why and how I've been going back probably every couple of years since I was little. We would go for, maybe 2 or 3 months. We'd try and make our time worth it over there. But yeah, I'm excited to share some of the stories and experiences with you all. So where should I start, Allie?
Yeah, what are some of your favorite memories? Like you said, I know you've been going since you've been little, so I'm sure you have a lot of memories from there, but maybe 3 or so, some of your favorite memories.
Well, I hope you like to eat, and I hope you like to eat some good food, because Taiwan is known for all their delicious cuisines, all the different ways they can prepare everything from vegetables to meats to sweets. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. One of my favorite places to go to was the night market. Now there's a couple of night markets, but probably the main one, or one of the older ones that everyone goes to, there's shops, there's carts, and food wise, they'll make the food right in front of you. Everything from dumplings to sausages on sticks, to let's see, there's like a sugary ice treat. Usually it's like shaved ice with condensed milk and some red beans on it. growing up, we would always be, excited to go to the night market, excited to eat their food, excited to do some shopping there. Um, and we would basically be falling asleep on the bus going back home because it would be so late. So that was always a good time.
Yeah, and now I think you've passed on some of your traditions that your mom has taught you with food with Nate and I. So you're sharing the wealth of all of the good food. And I know we've enjoyed making wontons and dumplings, and learning to use chopsticks has been a lot of fun, all thanks to you and your expertise.
Chopsticks are pretty hard. And hey, you two have picked it up really, really well, especially you, Allie. I think you've been awesome with it. What's you know, not making dumplings before, what was your firsthand experience making it with us?
It was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. You have to do the special folding, and you got to get it just wet enough, but not too wet, and try to find the right amount of filling to put in there. But it's a lot of work, and it's also worth the work, though. It's just so, so, so good. And then the sauce that you make along with it, it's just like the icing on the cake. Oh, now I'm really hungry. I think we need to make more dumplings, but yeah, it's really time consuming, but I think it's totally worth it.
Mhm. And like growing up, I have memories with my mom and the rest of her family too. It was almost like a family activity before dinner, right? Like let's say we're having dumplings that night. Everyone would sit around just like how we all sat around, and we would just sit there and wrap dumplings, and we would chat. I mean, it's almost like a family tradition, wrapping dumplings together, or you could say it's just a tradition. People do it together as like an activity, and then of course, the best part is making them. Right, for people who don't know, you can make them one of two different ways. You can either boil them and just take them out of the boiling water. Later on, that boiling water is really good as a soup if you want to add some of the dumpling sauce. Or one of the other ways is to pan sear it, which is so tasty because you get that nice crust and all that flavor stays in the dumpling instead of going into the water, which is fine. That's fine too. But man, now I'm getting hungry too, Allie.
Remind us again, there's like some old wives' tale about leaving rice behind in your bowl. What's the like wise tale? If you leave rice behind, what's gonna happen to you? But
So
supposedly.
it's so funny. My mom told it to my sister and I growing up, and you bet we're going to tell our kids, growing up too. So the whole thing is Chinese culture is based so heavily on food, right? It's such a big part of their culture. They take it very seriously. Not saying that, any other cultures don't take their food seriously, but there's some very strict traditions, I guess. And that is eating every single thing in your bowl, including the last grain of rice. And so this wives' tale came about. So the tale is, if you leave any specks in your bowl, then your significant other, husband or wife, is going to have a very speckly face, like, pimples or zits or what have you, right? You can use your imagination. And they would tell this to kids growing up so that they would eat all their rice, that their bowl would be nice and clean before they could be excused. And now I guess it's funny looking back, right? It's funny looking back and thinking, oh, this is what we were told, but we sure did believe it when we were kids.
I believe it. The one time that Nate left some rice in the bowl at your house, I had a pimple the next week. So I think it's
Oh
true.
man. Allie thinks it's true.
I think it might be. I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidence, but I'm going to say it's true.
Well, next time you need to leave some rice in your bowl, and we'll see what happens to Nate.
That's true. We'll do a little science experiment. See what happens.
Yeah. Yum, yum.
Yeah. Well, any other memories that you want to share before we move on to the next thing?
Um, let's see. I think there was one other memory that I'm happy to share, and it was when we were snorkeling. So, you know, Taiwan is basically this small tropical island off the coast of China. Not close enough that you could swim to it, but you get what I mean. And the waters there are gorgeous. I mean, they're tropical. It's tropical. It's in the Pacific. But we would always go snorkeling as part of an activity when we were visiting. And there was a few times where we were in the water and we just, everything from the fish and seeing all the coral and hearing the coral too, right? It's like snapping and crackling in your ears when you're underwater, which is pretty awesome. But there was one time where we saw a sea snake, which is the most venomous snake. You do not want to get bit by this, right? And it was awesome to see it. And then 2 seconds, we're like, okay, everyone needs to get the heck out of the water right now. um, but some of my best memories are always from snorkeling. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you've done some snorkeling in Florida too. Is it like not even comparable?
Um, it's I feel like every location's going to be a little bit different. Um, I would say in Taiwan, the fish and the coral are a little more vibrant in their colors, but there's still just as much. But I think that comes with it being, you know, tropical.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you've gotten some really good memories that you've shared with us. Are there some places that you recommend people should go while they're visiting Taiwan? Maybe some hidden gems or just really places that are touristy, but you still recommend people going to?
Um, I I definitely think going going snorkeling. There's a very popular snorkel spot called the Dragon Hole. That's on the north. It's on the north side of the island. I can't remember exactly where. That's a really really awesome snorkel spot. There are, let's see, another location I would say definitely the capital, Taipei. You can see Taipei 101, which is that huge skyscraper that they have. Really cool. I've been inside it once, and there's actually a big ball inside this building, and they will shift the position of the ball to keep the weight of the building stable during typhoons, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's really impressive. Whoever came up with that idea, give them a raise because that's genius.
They are getting paid way more than I can imagine, and they deserve so.
Yeah, that is so cool. Who would have thought?
Right. Um, Definitely those spots. I mean, there's so many places. It's almost hard for me to think of exactly where. But even if you want to go to the southern tip has a lot of popular. There's some tourist destinations. There's even a few islands that are further south too, and I think on the east side, and those are really popular for going scuba diving because it's even more so. That would be on the bucket list to do next time. Um, but yeah, highly recommend some of those spots.
Yeah, is there a good time of year to go? Because I know you keep mentioning like snorkeling. Do they really get snow? What's the weather like? Is there a good time to go?
So you you don't want to go during the summer, especially if you are not so tolerant to heat, because Taiwan's a tropical island. It rains there almost every day. And in the summertime, temperatures can be upwards of 95 to 105 degrees, but it's with full humidity. full humidity. So, you walk outside and you're already sweating. You're going to be sweating. And if you don't have AC in your house, you're going to be sweating.
Wow.
um, the winter time, our winters here, their winters are more mild. It rains more in the winter but it doesn't get as cold. Like, it doesn't snow. I would say it probably gets to the 50s, 60s, maybe 40s, but it doesn't typically snow there. The best times are definitely going to be like spring and then fall. Those are the really good times to go, but I mean, you can go anytime and still have a good time.
Yeah, it just depends if you want to sweat the whole time or maybe enjoy yourself a little bit more with the weather.
Exactly. Exactly. Allie,
Yeah.
have you been to any places that are really tropical and super hot and humid? Like, what are some places that you've been to that are like that might compare?
Yeah, I guess recently I shared in a previous episode about our cruise to the Bahamas, and I had never been, in the late spring, early summer. I've always gone in the winter, and it was extremely hot. Now, 85 is not really extremely hot, but the humidity was very high. So it felt like as soon as you get off the ship or onto the port, whatever, you're already starting to sweat if you're walking anywhere. So it felt like it was hard to escape the heat unless you were swimming, and the water wasn't even really that cold. So it was like you didn't really want to get off for too long because you'd rather be in the AC on the ship and not, sweating through your clothes, just trying to enjoy
Mhm.
the sights. So I'd say that's probably the closest that I've experienced, because I usually go when I vacation in the summer is usually to like Europe or the western part of the US, which still gets very hot, but I think it's just like a different type of heat, especially out west. It doesn't feel, well, maybe if you're going in like August, but it doesn't feel as hot when I've gone in like June or July. It's not as humid, at least for me personally, because I can handle the heat.
Mhm.
And now a quick word from our sponsor. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up the most trending articles on the web on topics you choose at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. The entire web becomes listenable for the first time, all in one place. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling and start listening. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, tech, business, science, Bitcoin, or even the Kardashians. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. And the best part, they have podcasts. Explore trending podcasts from over 80 countries. You can even find us there. I started using it as my default podcast app. They even have a digital radio. Download and use Newsly for free now at www.newsly.me or from the link in the description, and use promo code WIVES. That's WIVES. And you can get a 1-month free premium subscription. You can find all this information in our description from this episode. And now back to our episode. Yeah. Well, that is really great recommendations. I definitely want to go with you sometime in the spring, not the summer, because it sounds way more pleasant in the spring. But what are some cultural differences between Taiwan and the US, and have some of them impacted your life since your mom, is from Taiwan and your dad's not? Has it kind of played a big role in your life, or maybe not so much?
I would say one cultural difference would be that it seems like, Chinese culture, it focuses more on the family, and American culture focuses more on the individual, right? Um, Here's a great example. So when Chinese, typically Chinese culture, when you're eating dinner, everyone has a nice small bowl with some rice and their chopsticks. And then in the center of the table, there's maybe 4 or 5 dishes. And the dishes, everyone basically picks and shares off of the dishes. They maybe there's a spoon, or they just use their chopsticks, grab that, put it in their bowl, and they eat it. And, looking at American cuisine and like the way that you eat, everyone has their own plate. right? Nice big plate. They got burgers, they've got, maybe a nice grilled chicken with some sides, but everyone usually loads up their plate and then you eat what's on your plate, right? So I think that's a great example, and of course that can cross to other aspects of the culture. But what do you think, Allie? Does that kind of describe, maybe it gives you a visual on what it would be like?
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that because I remember eating, was it like Chinese chicken at your house? The really good breaded chicken? Yeah, and we would like slice it up and we would just kind of pick it off of a plate in the middle and we all had our own little like dish or bowl. I can't exactly remember. Um, and it was really unique because I think of when I eat dinner with Nate or with my family, and usually it's like, okay, it's on the stove or on the countertop. We all just load up our plates and then go sit at the table. So there's still that aspect, at least in my family, of sitting together, but not necessarily, sharing the meal, that there's a bunch of pots or pans or whatever serving dishes on the table that we're all kind of taking from, and in more of a communal way than a, hey, this is my meal, I'm not going to share more than probably a bite with you. I see, it seems like kind of the American way of eating things. Now, would you say the portions are different in Taiwanese culture? Because Americans, there's always that reputation of like this big plate, we're just eating large portions. Is it smaller, you think, or do you really not notice because you're just kind of picking off the shared dishes?
I would say it's generally just a little bit smaller, but I think that's just how it is. I think they eat more to just, hey, I've got my meal, but I don't know. There's people out there that probably get two portions. Maybe they think that there aren't enough portions. So, but generally from what I've seen, it's just a little bit smaller. Yeah.
Hmm. And then isn't there's like something where if you eat more food, that's good, right?
Yes. So it is a compliment to the chef if you eat and you enjoy your food, right? So there's no bad table manners, like I feel like here you don't want to eat too loud, you don't want to chew with your mouth open, right? You don't want to be noisy. There's nothing real. Oh, okay, you don't want to be excessive, right? But there isn't that much of a a mannerism. It's more or less, hey, enjoy your food however you want to eat it. If you're loud, okay, fine. If you're quiet, okay, fine. But as long as you're enjoying your food and you're eating it, um, there's no rules. And yes, it is a compliment to the chef. The more you eat, that's a sign that the food is good, that it's tasty, that the chef did a good job. It's not. I feel like sometimes in our culture, you don't want to be seen as a snob by eating a lot, right? What do you think, Allie?
Yeah, I think that's really true. And there's a saying that you've taught me, and now I'm not gonna be able to say it in Mandarin, but it's basically like take your time, like while you're eating. It's what the kids usually say to their parents. It's like, yeah, I'm not even gonna try. Something with an M. It sounds like.
It is. It's 慢慢吃. And what it is, it's like, hey, take your time eating. And it's sort of maybe used as a may I be excused, but it's not really being excused. It's a polite, respectful thing to say to your elders because usually they're still eating. Yes. Yep. 慢慢吃. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
like that, especially as someone who's a slow eater. I can appreciate that in such a fast-paced culture of like, hey, we don't have time for dinner. Let's just get McDonald's or quickly eat before, the next kid has to go to dance class or sports or whatever. It's nice that they take the time to be like, okay, it's okay. You can take your time. Like it's a respectful
Hmm.
thing to say.
Right, right. Like if you were sitting at the table and everyone was all done eating, but you were still eating, that's what people would say to you. You don't have to necessarily be an elder. Of course, there's sometimes they're taking their time eating too. But it's the whole thing of, hey, go at your pace, just enjoy the food. Whether you eat it fast, great, or if you eat it slow, that's fine. But the whole thing is take your time. Don't be in a hurry to try and finish eating just because everyone else is.
Yeah, I love that. That's probably one of my favorite things. Well, I don't know a ton about the Taiwanese culture. You're still teaching me, but that's one of my favorite things, I think. Because, like I said, I'm a slow eater, so I can appreciate the slowing down of mealtime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to share about Taiwan or any other travel memories that you have from other places?
I mean, let's see. I think one last thing that you have to do when you're in Taiwan, I'm sure you will do it, but you have to check out their metro system. They have some of the cleanest, nicest subway or metro, whatever you want to call it. There's above ground, there's below ground. The above ground ones are my favorite because you can just watch the city as you're going around. Um, definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Well, that about wraps up our episode. Thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing about Taiwan. I know our listeners are going to love this. I enjoyed chatting with you and learning more about your experiences. So thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Allie. Can't wait to come back.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we hope you tune in to our Wildcard Wednesday episodes as well. And until next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Lives podcast. Come escape with us again every other Tuesday for Travel Tuesdays and every other Wednesday for Wildcard Wednesdays.
Don't forget to give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until next time, wander on!